Well, unfortunately, we didn't have this reading about 2 weeks ago when we had a flood over here in church. It would have reflected like the temple of Jerusalem. But clearly, water's the theme today. Water is the theme. And it's always been the theme for the Jews and for us as Catholics because of the waters of baptism. But in this first reading from Ezekiel, we have this water flowing from the temple, through the temple, out of the temple, under the temple, around the temple. It's water everywhere, and it keeps rising. It's first covers his ankles, then his knees, and up to his waist, and eventually it became a surging river of fresh, life-giving water. And that's what the waters always represent, this life-giving, clean, pure, fruitful waters. And the trees and the plants reach out to get into their roots into that place where the waters are so that they can bear fruitfulness forever and ever. And that's what we hear in this first reading. And of course, as Catholic Christians, we just cannot help but connect it to those waters of baptism. And to appreciate it's not drinking water, it's water for the Spirit. And it's symbolic of that life-giving grace that God always wants to give to us, especially through our faith in Jesus Christ. But then there's a shift in the readings today as we go to this gospel. And this is heartrending. A man 38 years ill. 38 years. And there was this place of miraculous waters that when the angels or whoever would stir it up, whoever got in there first would get healed. And it had this grand reputation, and this man sat there for 38 years. He was longing to be healed in those waters, and he doesn't seem to lament or get angry or anything. He just states a fact. He says, well, sir, he says to Jesus, I've been here 38 years, but when the water gets stirred up, I don't have anybody to help me get in, and somebody always beats me there, and they get healed, and I haven't been healed. I don't know if in the original language there are words that would suggest he's really lamenting this, but he just states a fact. So Jesus, without skipping a beat, just says, do you want to be well? Yes. Pick up your mat and walk. And he does. He picks up his mat and walk. He's just near the waters. He didn't even touch the waters. But he's healed by Jesus. And then the big showdown comes. Some of the Jews, probably the Pharisees, say to him, what are you doing carrying your mat on the Sabbath? You can't do that. Or like I said the other day, you can light 2 candles but not a third one. I'm making this one up. So the law was very specific. In fact, the law said you can only take a certain number of steps on the Sabbath. And you had to count them out because if you went over, you were sinning. You were breaking the law. Silly law. And so they said, he tells them, this man healed me. He told me to pick up my mat, so that's what he did. Well, who is it? I don't know. And eventually Jesus finds him. He didn't find Jesus. Jesus found him. And after he spoke to him, and he told him, avoid sin, don't make your life worse again. He's able to run back to them and say, oh, I know. And I don't think he was turning him in or anything. He just said, the man's name was Jesus. And then they began to persecute him. I wonder again, as we look at this, there's some similarity in our faith experience, but that part about the law, it just doesn't nag at us. In fact, for example, and I'm not saying this to get anybody to go and fix it, but did you know that there is, I believe it's still a law in the church that says you must go to communion once a year, and it has to be during the Easter time, the Easter season. So that is to profess our great faith in Jesus Christ risen from the dead. And you only have to confess. Well, you don't even have to confess once a year. You don't have to. Only if you're in serious sin that's preventing you from receiving that Eucharist. But the number of people married outside the church, the number of people, whatever. There's any number of reasons why people don't go to communion once a year. And do you think God is up there out there somewhere saying, oh, I saw that, you didn't receive. Oh, I mean, really, God has better things to do. He has to love us. That keeps him busy enough. But the church makes these rules to, I guess, give us the minimum amount of support and borders so that we can live fruitful lives. But having been a priest for almost 49 years, I get so tired of hearing people burp out these little tiny things that they did wrong, as if that's what's defining us. What if all this day, what if today you had no money on you, for example, and you walked by a fruit stand and you saw a man or a woman on the side who was literally starving, weeping aloud, I'm hungry, and nobody was doing anything, and you stole a piece of fruit and gave it to him or her? Would that be a sin? The church says, no. Church says, if you did that as a good for somebody who absolutely needed it, that would mitigate the sin. That would say, you did an act of love, and that person who owned the stand should have given some fruit to the person who was starving. The point is, rules are rules, laws are laws. They're probably minimally good, but they're not the last word. The last word is love. And there Jesus saw a man ill for 38 years, and he didn't even seem to be bitter about it. He just, 38 years. And immediately, I love whenever the scriptures say immediately, because it shows Jesus' absolute dependence on love, loving others. He immediately healed him. Without question, he didn't ask anything back from the man, and that was it. I wonder if we do that, if we immediately love in ordinary circumstances of life, not dealing with somebody ill for 38 years. But what if we did know somebody ill for 38 years and we saw them in need? Would we immediately love, immediately help them, immediately do the good thing, even if, for example, I love this one example. It goes back 48 years, I guess, 47 years. A woman came to confession to me, and since I can't even remember her name, I'm not telling on her, and she's long dead. She was in her 80s at the time, and that was 8 years ago, something like that. And she came and she knelt down, and I told her, please sit instead, because, I mean, she was 80-something years old and hobbling and getting down. So she started to cry. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I think she killed somebody because she was sobbing. And she said in these sobbing words, Father, forgive me, I have sinned. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to hear? What am I going to hear? She said, I missed Mass on Sunday. And I said to her, well, why did you miss Mass on Sunday? And she said this, my grandson was sick, and I stayed home to take care of him. And I was a young priest, and I had the audacity to say to her, ma'am, if you had gone to church, that would have been a sin. Your grandson needed you. That would have been a sin, because she would have avoided the gift of love to somebody who I'm sure was depending on his grandma's love at that moment, simply to follow the rule, simply to follow the law. Now, does this mean that Father Perry is excusing everybody who wants to break the law constantly? No, you got to use your common sense. You got to know when. And it should be really always for an act of love, even an immediate act of love.